What the hell is this? I gotta put a circle up there? Oh, that was. Oh,
It's Iron Mike 404. We're doing a review of Prince of Persia, The Lost Crown, the latest Metroidvania from Ubisoft Montpellier. If you're not familiar with that developer, they've made games such as Beyond Good and Evil and the more recent Rayman Legends of Rayman Origins series. In the game, you star as Sargon, one of the legendary mortals of the Persian army. Persia is under attack, and you and the rest of the mortals are there to stop an invasion. Of course, you put an end to the invasion, and you return back to the castle to receive honors from the Empress and the Prince of Persia. Immediately after the ceremony, drama starts, the prince is kidnapped, and you rush off to Mount Koth to save him. And the story really begins once you get there. I'm not really going to go into any spoilers during this review, but you can expect a pretty long story for a Metroidvania. Main story took me 15 to 20 hours. Then, in order to collect all the achievements after that, it took me roughly 30 hours. So you can expect, a pretty decent story full of twists and turns. Some of them kind of obvious that you'll figure out by yourself beforehand, but other ones that'll kind of shock you. Throughout this video review, I'm going to cover the gameplay, the audio, and the visuals. So let's start with the gameplay. Prince of Persia, The Lost Crown is a 2D Metroidvania, so if you ever play any of those type of games, you know that map traversal, going back and backtracking, getting weapon upgrades, getting skill upgrades, getting health upgrades, combat, and bosses are all parts of that genre. And this game excels in every area and even innovates on a lot of them. For example, one of the first things that you unlock in the game is a map mechanic called memory shards. Now this might sound simple, but if you played a lot of Metroidvanias, you know that the map is very important. Unlocking the dark corners of the map, marking places that you gotta backtrack and things like that. This game has memory shards where you pretty much take a screenshot and it'll pin that to the map for later use. So if you're trying to backtrack, you're on the opposite end of the map, you forgot an area, you think you got to upgrade to unlock an area that you couldn't reach before, you can take a look at the screenshot on the map and say, hey, you know what, I still don't have that upgrade, let me go somewhere else. Speaking of the map, speaking of traversal, this map is huge and you will need these memory shards because you will be doing a lot of backtracking. Throughout this campaign, you're going to unlock skill after skill after skill after skill throughout the whole entire campaign. I know the campaign seems kind of long, but there's a really good sense of progression with unlocking things like double jumps, dashes, teleport moves, things like that to get to different areas of the map that you may have even forgotten about over the course of the long campaign. Now, one thing that I wish the devs had implemented is being able to, like maybe be able to teleport anywhere on the map back to a teleporter or a save tree or something like that, because I'm not gonna lie, this map is huge. There are teleporters, but they're not spread evenly across the map. There might be one or two teleporters per area, and the areas are huge, so maybe just allow me to teleport from anywhere on the map back to a teleporter in that same area would have helped out a lot with the backtracking and saving a lot of time. Overall though, the map is well designed. There's tons of diverse biomes. Don't just think that you're just going to be going through the desert or just climbing up rocky mountain slope areas. There's like city areas, sewer areas, ice areas, different ways to mix up the map, and the Dales did a really good job with that. Now, one of the mainstays of the Prince of Persia series was puzzles, and another was, like parkour and traversal, running off of walls, dodging spikes and things like that. The Dales found a way to mix all of that up into a Metroidvania, and honestly, it's a perfect fit for the Metroidvania genre. Puzzle-wise, you have two types. You have puzzles that take movement, traversal, dashing, teleporting, things like that. And then you have other puzzles where you kind of have to pay attention and like manipulate something in the environment to get a chest. For the most part, these puzzles are very clever, very well designed. Some of them will take you like 10-15 minutes to figure out, but they're fair for the most part. I've only ran into one or two that seem kind of, like mean-spirited and cheap, or just pretty much vague to the point where I spent way too much time trying to figure it out, and I just got lucky figuring out some of them. Another thing that devs should probably work on is the risk reward for some of these puzzles, especially like the spike pit puzzles and the death trap puzzles. You really don't get nothing that's worth your time going into them. So maybe, like rebalance where the different puzzles are. I'm not getting like an upgrade for my health bar when I go through a death trap puzzle that took me 10-15 minutes to try, die, and retry. So I mean, that's something they could probably improve on in the next game. With that being said, the puzzles aren't difficult because of the controls by any means. The controls are really tight and responsive. Probably some of the most fluid movement in a Metroidvania or any type of game that I've played since like maybe the Ori series. But yeah, it's definitely not. When I died, it was because I made a mistake, not because, the controls felt sluggish or unresponsive or anything like that. So they did a really good job with the controls, and that kind of rolls into the combat. The combat is just as tight as the movement. The combat is very deep. You start out with a few moves. I think your combo is only like a little simple 3-hit combo and then a heavy attack. But throughout the game, again, they did a really good job with the progression of unlocking skills, upgrades for your abilities, your combat abilities, your movement abilities. So it never feels stale. You always get a sense of progression, getting stronger, adding more combos, adding different moves, different ultimate abilities, things like that. And that's due to the amulet upgrade system. You have amulets with slots, and you can upgrade the amount of slots that you got throughout the game. The amulets that you find and you unlock and upgrade, they tend to augment like your combat abilities. You'll go from a 3-hit combo. You can find the amulet that'll add one extra hit to your combo, 2 extra hits, 3 extra hits, things like that. So it keeps the combat varied and interesting throughout the game. You can build around your strengths as a player. You can make your ranged attack stronger. If you're a ranged user, you can use your combos, make them last a couple hits longer. You could strengthen your parry, so every time you parry, you do more damage on the counter hit, or you get health from parrying, things like that. So it keeps it varied and interesting, keeps you on your toes, keep you looking for the different upgrades, and whenever you open the chest and get an ammo, you're kind of excited to see what it does. With that being said, this is another area that the devs excelled in. You can tell they're students of Metroidvanias, and they took what they learned from the best of the genre and, put them all, mixed them up in a pot and made a good game. A lot of these games, if you were to have an amulet system that upgrades, you find a lot of useless amulets you'd be wanting to scrap or throw away or not use. But even though I found amulets that weren't to my playstyle, I could see why they would be useful for another person's playstyle. So there's no useless amulets. You might be wanting to switch back and forth between different builds, things like that. So excellent job there. Alright, and rounding out the combat, Gonna talk about enemies and bosses. The enemies, a lot of times in these games they have different biomes. You'll have like 3 different enemy types, and then they'll just have like the fire arrow guy, the ice arrow guy, the lightning arrow guy, but they really mixed it up with the different enemies. None of them felt too samey or just like reskins, like the fire reskin or the ice reskin. But they will have like a fire range type and ice range type. But if you weren't paying attention, you wouldn't notice any similarities between the biome enemies. Now, one thing with the bosses, they did a really good job with most of the bosses. None of them were boring. None of them seemed like super repetitive. And they were, I want to say like 90% of them were really fun, really well thought out bosses. They don't just repeat attacks or have dumb AI. They're really challenging, and it kind of, as you progress through the game, you're gonna start using like all of your abilities, all your time manipulation abilities just to stay alive, and then counterattack during the damage phase. So all in all, the devs did a really good job with the combat, really good job with the gameplay. All in all, just some slight issues with the size of the map and not being able to get around it quick enough. Sometimes when you're going back and backtracking. So all in all, the gameplay is very solid. Really love the gameplay. Let's move on to the audio. As far as the audio sounds in the background, enemy sounds, combat sounds, things like that, they really pop. They have very distinct sounds, and I mean they're really well done in this game. So I got no complaints there. Nothing sounds overused, recycled, or bad sound quality. Everything sounds really good. Music wise is where the game really shines. Handling the music is Gareth Coker. He's done the soundtracks for Ori and the Blind Forest, Ori and the Will-O-the-Wisp, and also Halo Infinite. He's one of the top guys in the industry right now. He does another really good job with this game also. So what he does in this game, during the map traversal, going between different areas, just fighting your regular little scrub enemies, the music is catchy, it's really good, but it's subdued. It's almost like a part of the environment, like the wind in the trees or the birds singing in the forest and stuff like that. I know it sounds kind of corny, but he does a really good job of not having the soundtrack overpower what's going on, but it's still not just like trash music. It's really good music. Now when you get to the bosses, everything builds up and you feel and sound like you're really in a boss fight. So I kind of appreciate that subtle difference between just like roaming around the map versus, the bombastic like boss fights and things like that. So in summary, once again, the audio is another solid part of the game, along with the gameplay. Now let's talk about the visuals. Visually, I gotta admit, the game really surprised me. This isn't a $70 game. This isn't a 3D AAA ray traced out title. This is a 2.5D Metroidvania with some artistic visuals. So don't go in there expecting, like the visuals to blow you away, but the art style is definitely top notch. The enemy designs, the character designs, the environments, the detail in both are really good for a game with this art style. So don't let it fool you with the price tag. Don't let it scare you away. This is a very beautiful game. The abilities, the magical skills and abilities, things like that, they really pop off the screen. The different biomes, again, like I said, they did a really good job putting those in the game. They did a really good job visually showing those off. The time manipulation effects, things like that look really slick and cool. So all in all, the visuals are really good as well. I'm not gonna dock this game just because it's 2D. A lot of 3D games not as top quality like this game is. So all in all, I mean, We went over gameplay, that was solid. We went over audio, that was solid. And we went over the visuals, it got solid visuals. So what that mean? That mean you got a solid game for a budget price. So go out there and play that. This game is available in Ubisoft Plus. That's a subscription service from Ubisoft. You get that for a month. You can play this. You can play Assassin's Creed, the latest Assassin's Creed, the latest. I think the Avatar game is in there too. All the Ubisoft Plus titles come with the, I want to say like the deluxe edition DLC stuff as well. So I mean, try this game out. Go buy this game. I prefer you buy it, but try it out. You gotta play this game however you can get your hands on it. One of the best games of the year already. One of the first games of the year. There, I said it. This is a top-notch game at a reasonable price. Hey, I got no complaints about it. Go get this game.